wholesale, all the students out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love coming to hang out with you guys.
Yep. I just want to thank all the audience for coming through and welcome the audience for coming through and let you know that this is a monthly thing that we do, these audio production town halls, and we get to talk to interested people like Ryan here. And we'll just start off by, I'm just going to ask a simple question. Who is Røde Microphones?
Røde Microphones is an Australian-based microphone manufacturer, as you were talking. And the best part about it is we are no longer just a microphone manufacturer. There's conversations too about just being Røde, you know, and Røde has been around since '94, and in about, let's see, they started it very, very strongly in the music production space with their NT1 microphones. And the goal in the long run was to get the machine, build the product at high quality in Australia. That was always a goal. Peter Friedman is the creator and the chairman now of Røde Microphones. And that dream was to build it in Australia like his father did before him with amplifiers and speakers and things like that. So Peter took the microphone side of it and really started building an empire, if you will, of equipment, gear, and otherwise to make Australian-made microphones. And in 2000, we expanded that into the video market. And then from there, things got crazy with podcasting and broadcasting, streaming, the new Rodecaster Pro series that's out, and our AI1 audio interfaces, phone I guess specify microphones for phones and things like that.
Gotcha. Who would ever thought that podcasts would take off like that, right?
I know. And right before, you know, nobody knows what's going to happen, but it was about a year before COVID, and we really dove headfirst into podcasting and things like that. And we saw so much success from people taking their studio in-house when we all had to go home, you know. And that was a really... as a shining light on a dark moment, I guess you could say. And Røde gave back during that whole thing. Peter straight up said, I'm not going to furlough anyone, publicly said that. And he just wanted to give back where he could if we were going to be able to do this podcast stuff during, you know, a time in the world that was really not very fun and very hard for a lot of people. So I think he donated something near $1 million in gear to his local to the local Australian schools, and just really giving back to a lot of people streaming in the time of COVID. So.
Okay, good to know. So I understand that you have a little bit of a mic presentation for us? Because I love microphones. We could talk microphones all day, my friend.
It's one of my favorite topics. I do a lot of microphone 101 presentations and things like that. Just a conversation between you and I right here and right now, a lot of the things come back to how do I choose a microphone? Ooh. You know, and so my microphone 101 class has, as I like to put it, a lot of nerdy stuff to it.
Gotcha.
But a lot of educational stuff that has to be presented before you can really start diving into the art. I think a lot of us would agree that so much of audio is art, and that can be some of the painful things. And then I like to joke that the manual for my camera is this long, and the manual for my audio is about that long, right? So even though the art can be a little bit a little frustrating, I like to clarify some of this tech stuff because it allows you to choose a microphone actively to get you halfway there before you actually start doing some of that artistic stuff. So I like to focus on 3 areas of a microphone, and that's the type. A lot of people would, that's the simplified way of saying it. The type would be like a condenser microphone, a dynamic microphone, ribbon microphone, shotguns, which are hyper supercardioid microphones. If it's music, I might focus a little more on cardioid, but music industry, you can really talk about every single one of them. It just really depends on the class at the time. But frequency response, then I just sum that up into what's the EQ of the microphone, you know, EQ that's predetermined by the manufacturer of that microphone, and how do I use it? So those are the 3 things I focus on.
Great. I've always been very interested in the Røde NTR ribbon microphone. That's an awesome microphone.
It's one of my favorites, and we did something nobody had quite done. Now, there's plenty of active ribbon microphones out there.
Yes,
the
now.
NTR is an active ribbon. Yeah, exactly. Now, especially. We used to blow them up back in the day, right? The phantom power being applied to a transformerless ribbon microphone would typically pop that ribbon element, and and it's game over for that microphone, get a lot of people fired or otherwise. And now they're active. One of the main reasons Rode put an active ribbon microphone together is because we wanted to supplement the gain. There's a lot of issues with ribbon microphones if you don't have a really high-end preamp, and most of that is noise floor or just not enough gain, so you don't get good signal to noise ratio. And our ribbon microphone in the bottom of it, in I think it's iron. Please forgive me if that's not correct. It's really rigid, but the base of it actually holds a circuit that will essentially act like a lifter and boost that signal up to a usable level on a budget-friendly interface. So it works perfectly fine with something like an AI1 single-channel interface. If you want to get a little more creative with an acoustic guitar recording or something like that, I absolutely love it. And it's also one of the wider frequency response of a ribbon microphone, because the frequency response of a vintage ribbon mic will usually tank at about 12, 15, 18K, depending on which one you have. 12 might be a little bit aggressive, but 15 and 18 for sure. So ours actually goes out to 20,000 hertz. And so it sounds more like a condenser with a lot more of that top end information, but it's really warm. And then if you want it to sound a little more vintage, you just start rolling off some of those high end frequencies, and it's very versatile. Yeah. And then it's affordable too. $799 for a Rode NTR. It can absolutely be one of your first ribbon microphones.
I know. It's mine.
Beautiful. Yeah. So, would you like to see some of those as far as
absolutely,
what I'm talking about?
Absolutely,
and things like that.
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to share this over here. I got a presentation going, and it does show the Rode. Let me share that, and I will show you the Rode headquarters. Oops, I got to get there. It is. So, U.S. product specialist. And then there's the warehouse that I was talking about out in Sydney. So the warehouse out in Sydney is a quarter of this industrial block, and this is where all that happens. We make and distribute all those microphones right here. We just bought the other quarter of the lot straight across that street there, and it's not really a street, it's more like the driveway, but
Gotcha.
You get the idea. The other quarter is now our shipping. So we were able to take the shipping out of the back of this building, move it over to its own facility, which allows us to manufacture more things and distribute more things faster. And they're really growing, and they want to do it right here. They don't want to go to China for this stuff. They want to make it happen right here in our doors, so you get a better product at a better price. With this 101 class, we talk about a lot of things like that selection and setup and stuff. So here's where I start, right? Diaphragms being the first thing. This is the capsule. And these are all just synonyms for kind of the same idea. A dynamic microphone has a magnetic coil, has a voice coil and a magnet. That voice coil moves across that magnet, and that creates your audio coming out the back of the microphone. Same thing with a condenser, except for you have a diaphragm in front, a back plate, and then the difference in the distance between that diaphragm and the back plate becomes your audio signal. A condenser is so much more sensitive that you got to be cautious of what's around you. If you got a computer fan running, air conditioner, things like that, a condenser mic can pick up all of that. A dynamic microphone's got a little bit more help in that space because it's not as sensitive. So I'm using a pod mic from Rode right now. It's the one on the bottom left there, and it's about 2 inches away from my mouth. It's what most broadcasters will use. And I'm in a home studio. So right now my fan's not on, but I didn't do anything with the air conditioner. And the goal here is to just try to minimize its presence in the audio and just maximize my presence in the audio. So type of microphone is a huge first step. After that, it's the polar patterns. A lot of my classes, like I said, I'll talk omni, cardioid, and super and hyper. You mentioned the Rode NTR, which is a bidirectional or figure eight microphone. So you can imagine that just being two of those cardioid patterns right on top, back to back, and that will get that. So this is what most of the spec sheets when you're looking at a microphone will show you. And so the red is going to be a top-down view of the microphone. So if I'm in omnidirectional, you see the red circle just goes 360 degrees, goes all the way around. Polar patterns for the cardioid pattern is going to be about 50% if you want to give it into a percentage. But if you go 0, that's the front point of the microphone. Now I like this representation of it because it shows that this is actually 3D. It's not 2D like we see here. So when I go 3D, you can see that if I'm 100% on axis, that's actually the front part of that microphone. And as I move around the sides of any side of the microphone, I start reducing the input of that sound till I get to the back. Now, I like to make the joke that no polar pattern gets rid of sound entirely. The analogy I use is that water, let me go ahead and stop sharing this so I'll see you again, that water is kind of how sound waves react. We actually use water a ton to test sound waves and see how they actually propagate versus air, which you can't see. So in water, like if you're standing on the beach and the waves hit your legs, does the water just like, is it just dry land behind you? No. So it just wraps around your legs and then continues on. Same way with polar patterns. So if I'm 100% on axis to this microphone, which I am right now, and then I got a fan, my fan is actually right over there. And so it's kind of into that null point of the back of this microphone, the best I can get it, and it's farther away. So hopefully just minimize it significantly. But if I stopped talking and I didn't have a Rodecaster Pro noise gating our signal, which is just another thing to add to take noise out of the signal, you would hear that fan, right? It would just be boosted and amplified through this microphone. It would be quiet, but it'd be there. So if you create a microphone that actually gets rid of that 100%, I want to be a partner because you're going to be rich. Yeah. But in the meantime, you can't stop physics. And then for those of you out there who are interested in the last little bit there, frequency response, I'm going to throw this back on here. And again, this is kind of like, there we go. This is kind of like EQing a microphone. So this is the manufacturer choosing some of the tonal characteristics of a microphone. So we as humans hear from a frequency response on average of 20 to 20,000. Kendall, can you see my mouse as well?
Yeah, yes, I can.
Great. Okay, cool. So yeah, from 20 to 20,000 is what we on average hear as a human. You can see here that the NT1 is incredibly flat. We were going after a few name brands. We didn't reverse engineer anything. We just wanted to make a really super flat microphone with low noise floor. And here it is, NT1. It's got a little bit of a bump here from, let's say, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, it's like 4 to 10, 4 to 12. And
that was the first
it's
thing
only
I noticed about the
decibels.
NT1.
So it's flat with a little bit of brightness on it. But then you look at the pod mic and you're like, whoa, what's going on? And so the reason the pod mic is carved like that is because it's designed for the human voice. It's meant to do what I'm doing right now. So when I think of frequency response or EQing the microphone as a manufacturer, I'm looking at what purpose does it serve the end user. So if I want a little bit of boost in that 200 range, so this is 100, 200, 300, 400 on up, right? So that range is give or take 250 down to 100, we got a little bit of a bump. That's going to boost a little bit of the body of the voice, more that chest tone. And then in here in this low mid, you're going to get some boxiness, some weird frequencies that just aren't very pleasant to the human voice. 1K is the presence of a human voice. And the same thing up here in these mid ranges, and high mids, 4,000, 5,000, stuff like that. It's going to add presence and detail to a person's voice. So we created this microphone to do that for you prior to recording so that the tool is halfway there. And that's the same story. Now, why would I want an NT1 versus a pod mic? Well, an NT1 with its flat frequency response is going to, what you put into it's what's coming out of it. It's not going to change much, and you're going to have a lot of versatility with a microphone like that, because one day I could put an acoustic guitar on it, next day a vocal, next day a snare drum. I've done all of those things with various presentations at schools and so forth that I've done. The NT1 is whatever you want to make it, and as long as it's not distorting or clipping on your snare drum, it's gonna put out a nice snare drum sound. So those are the things that I kind of like to start a Mic 101 conversation with.
Understood. I could attest for the NT1. When I heard it, I was like, oh my gosh, this mic is so flat. And I do own 2 pod mics.
That's perfect. We love the pod mic because we do have the Procaster, which is a flatter, tighter polar pattern microphone. And
I have that one too as well.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah. Our in the industry, right? We get a lot of conversations with end users about the RE20 versus the Procaster, things like that. Ours is 230. I think that one's 350, give or take. And honestly, once you get down to that conversation of choosing, after you've gotten past the conversation, I should say, of type, polar pattern and frequency response, you can really just try out both, and whichever one you like for your voice is the one you kind of choose. Now, the pod mic was created with the idea of no broadcast microphones really exist at $99, right? So we were trying to add to our lineup that gives you a lot of choices at high quality. Again, all this is made in Australia. So even at $99, we're not making it elsewhere. Not many companies can say that, if any, and then still keep it at $99 as a company, you know? So this microphone is a little bit more open sounding. Its frequency response is specific. You know, it's not flat. It's meant to be kind of that thing. I put it on kick drum before. It was fun. Sounded great. But you better want those frequencies, right? Because it's carved. I like to equate it, not necessarily the pod mic itself, but there's I think it's Audix that made the D6 kick drum mic or whatever. You know, like if you're talking kick drum, right, and you're looking at frequency response, you better want it, because the D6 has like one of the biggest kick drum curves I think I've ever seen for a microphone ever. They just said, buy this for your kick drum. You know, they didn't really want it to be made for anything else. That's what it's for. So if you wanted versatility with that microphone, you're not going to get it, you know.
I have a question about the pod mic. Have you ever used the pod mic on toms?
Not yet, because I didn't have enough at the moment. You know, I want to do that. So why don't we make that happen? Next time I come to Full Sail, we'll just put that on some drums.
Please do that for me.
I think one of my this is weird, right? Because you got an MD421, a common, very successful tom mic. It's long as can be. It's a baseball bat, right? And this one's not long at all, you know, but it's wider. So to get it up and over a tom mic, you'll really want an accurate drummer, and then maybe a bigger drum too. But now that I think about it, I might have put it on floor tom one time, but the floor tom can be fairly similar to a kick drum, right? It's a really big drum. It's got a lot of that body, but plenty of room to place a microphone. It's over off to the side, out of the way of the cymbals and things like that. So let's do that next time, though.
Absolutely. I'm down.
Yeah.
And I think I believe the pod mic is a well-built mic for its price range. I mean, it feels like a tank. It's super sturdy, very versatile. Like I said, I have two I use all the time. I'm happy I bought them.
Yeah, when we hand it off to our customers, they like start a little bit. They wow, you know. I always joke that, you know, defend yourself when you need to, when you're going between gigs. But there's something about a sturdy microphone, a strong, big, you know, heavy microphone that
like a handshake, like a firm handshake.
That's right. It's just strong. It's meant to be there, right? It's not, you don't want to hold something and go like, ugh, what is that? You know, I'm going to break this thing if I try to put it on a drum. And Rode doesn't do much of that at all. And it's always well built, even if it isn't necessarily heavy, right? Like our Wireless Go 2 systems are our new wireless system, and they're small, they're plastic. They're meant to do a very specific job. They're the first of that form factor and so forth. When you hold it, you go, oh, that's small and discreet. But that's what you want with a wireless microphone, right?
A little too discreet.
To a studio broadcast microphone, I don't want it to be like, ooh, tiny, you know? And even like, you know, a 604 or something like that for toms from Sennheiser, those are still sturdier. And I want Rode to really get into that space as well. If we could do one more thing with filling out our lineup, it would be drum mics for sure. I'd love to see some tom mics from Rode specifically.
That'd be pretty sweet.
Indeed.
Yeah, the Go mics, they're a little too discreet sometimes. I got a funny story about that. I had a friend, he had one on his shirt, and we were doing a stream, and he went to the restroom just like, you know, the old that old movie.
I know where you going with this? Yep.
What movie was that? What was that? The Naked Gun, I think it was called.
Right. Yeah. Where they still got a hot mic going.
Yeah, a hot mic, and he's in the restroom.
Yeah, I've had customers straight up walk out the presentation with them or whatever. You know, they're so discreet that you forget that you had them on or gave them to somebody. And before this, we were talking about, you know, getting people to be comfortable inside of the recording space or otherwise, and that is one of the parts of making a discreet microphone is you hopefully forget that you're actually on the recording, you know?
Yeah, loosen up a little bit. Yeah.
Right.
That's a little too loose, though.
Yeah, it's too loose, a little too loose.
You guys have really been taking over in this content creation space. And like I said, who knew podcasts would have taken off like this? I guess the whole content creation thing, it's like everybody has their own voice now. And it seems like you guys had the foresight to see that. I mean, because you guys are making some awesome products that really help people create their content.
And Rode listens to their customers, you know, and me as a representative, I do a lot of tech support. I see a lot of end users. I teach a lot of people. And then Rode HQ out in Sydney, Australia, they are, especially now, super proactive in the content space, the social media space, their website. They're asking for those customers to come back and let them know exactly what it is they're looking for. Not many companies you can say that about, right? So actively looking at what was called for. So I remember a behind the scenes conversation well before I knew anything about the Rodecaster Pro, right? Because I'm not privy to that on a day-to-day basis. That's out in Australia. That's their research and development team. They keep it quiet too because you want to be the first to the market. You want to be something like a Rodecaster Pro where you just shock everybody, right? And I was talking to one of our techs out there and one of the higher ups really, and I was saying I unfortunately don't have many solutions in the space of podcasting that where like I find my customers kind of puzzle piecing things together. They want to be there for Rode and they want to use Rode products, but by the time they get a podcast solution built up, it's kind of using somebody else's console, like a Mackie mixer or something like that. They're running through a 4-channel interface from somebody else or this or that. And then by the time the puzzle piece actually gets completed with phone calls and all that, it's like $500, and I tried to get it lower than that. You know, doing a 4-person podcast just didn't have a solution if you weren't willing to go buy a console. And the tech simply just said, I got you. I'm not even kidding. Like, you just, something's coming. I can't tell you what. Hold tight. I went, okay.
Right.
You know, and that was my exact response, just like, now I'm really curious, right? And I did not expect a console. I expected a bundle, you know, or something like that, right? A 4-channel interface, 4 microphones that were more affordable, some way to plug in a phone via Bluetooth or something, right? And kind of, but boom, the Rodecaster Pro 1 dropped, and me and everybody else was just blown away by what they did inside of the podcast space. It was unbelievable. Even our competitors were like, how are you doing that? I don't know. Talk to them. They're amazing.
Absolutely wonderful too, because I remember when podcasting first started, I was the one with the Frankenstein setup. And I'm telling you, I'm on one of these units right now that has it all. It's just so easy to move from one place to another, do multiple podcasts if I have to. So I totally understand.
It is. It's portable for sure. It is bigger than your phone, right? But we weren't trying to create something that, you know, is a 1-person podcast or this setup. We already had that, right? We had the AI1 audio interface, single channel interface. We had a lot of questions as to why it wasn't 2 channels. Well, the concept of multi-track recording almost makes 2 channels irrelevant. Now, that's a bold statement from me. I know that, but hear me out, right? I've asked musician after musician, when you record yourself, are you plugging 2 microphones in, right? I got a pod mic on my voice and I have a DI for my guitar, or I have a Rode NT1 on my acoustic guitar and then an NT1 on my vocals. Do you do it that way? And I've yet to have a single person tell me that they do it that way when they're trying to record themselves. Most people, if they're doing a demo, it's 1 microphone in the room and they just play it real fast live. Otherwise, they're multi-tracking. They're taking 1 NT1, putting it on an acoustic guitar, getting a good pass at that with a click track, etc., then singing over the top of that with the same NT1. So I think that's what the R&D, and I have no idea, right? I'm not a part of that. That's well outside of my pay grade, but I'm sure the research found that. And there's 2-channel interfaces out there and otherwise. But then we had podcasters. And it's like, are you going to bring another person into your podcast? And if they said no, there you go. pod mic and an AI1, right? Done. Well, what if I then want to bring in a phone call and a second guest? Okay, well, Rodecaster Pro. Yes, it's got 4 microphone inputs, but instantaneously you get all of your phone call problems solved with one fader. And if nobody's heard of Mix Minus before, which I'm sure you all have, it's got Mix Minus built right into it. So you no longer have to create a manual auxiliary send and return with a Mix Minus built into it that you made. It just has it. So at any point where somebody says, I'm moving from me alone, either in the recording space or into the podcast or podcast space, up into multiple people and multiple devices, Rodecaster Pro.
And for anybody who may be watching who don't understand what Mix Minus is, can you quickly explain that for us?
I can. So it's kind of in the name where mix minus something, right? So if I'm on a phone call, I have my Rodecaster Pro mix. So I might have my sound pads, I might have 2 microphones, I might even bring in Spotify via Bluetooth, something like that. Well, then I pull up a phone call, say on USB 2 or 1, or depending on which Rodecaster Pro you have, the Rodecaster Pro 1 had a TRRS connection for a phone, which is perfect for that, or Bluetooth on the Rodecaster Pro 2. Well, I don't want anything coming from the phone back to itself. So it's the whole mix on the Rodecaster Pro minus that track going back to itself. So it takes that mic 1 and 2, the sound pads, Spotify, whatever, and sends it out to the phone, but that phone never comes back to itself.
Gotcha. So the person on the phone or the person on Skype or something like that, they can't hear themselves coming back at themselves.
Correct. And the other thing too is that a lot of people get this mixed up where they think it's like once the board, it's in the board or otherwise, then like you might hear it double back or what am I trying to say? Let's see. I'm trying to think of an example exactly, because Mix Minus is difficult, and that's why we want to also try to make it as easy for the end user as possible. But
Gotcha.
if you're on the other side and in your phone, you're playing to let's say you're calling into a radio station, the old way we used to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
What did the radio host always tell you? Turn off your
Turn off your radio.
That's right, because you are on the radio.
Yeah.
And so then that would come out of the radio back into the microphone on the phone and then back into the broadcast. And that's a loop.
Yes.
And so that same thing happens here. But the main thing I got to clarify is it's just what's coming in from the phone. So you get everything that happens that side of the phone. And if an echo is included in that, then it's not the Rodecaster not Mix Minusing. It's that something's wrong coming into that microphone.
Gotcha.
And so you got to be very clear and cautious of what you're sending where. But in general, Mix Minus is going to take what's coming in from the phone and let you hear it, but never send it back to itself.
Absolutely. Gotcha. Love that. One of the biggest things that I was really curious about that I wanted you to talk on a little bit is the difference between the Rodecaster Pro and the Rodecaster Pro 2. I mean, when I look at it, I'm like, it looks almost the same. It has a tilted screen. Is that it?
Nope. How much time do we got? We're running low already. I know.
Yeah, we are running low, but just give us a quick.
I'll give you the 4 that I've told everybody. And 3 and 4 are actually kind of part of the same thing. But
Okay.
here's the first 2. The first major thing is combo jacks with a clean preamp, right?
Yeah.
So the preamp is 76 decibels with quote unquote preamps that are reaching the theoretical level in which the lowest level they can of noise floor. So it's a 76 dB gain. That's half of how you get a clean preamp. The other half of it is making it as noiseless as possible. So Rode actively sought after a circuit that would be, again, approaching the quietest a preamp could ever be.
Gotcha.
So a really, really good preamp with combo jacks. So you got mic, instrument, and line level inputs on all 4 tracks that are physically there on the Rodecaster Pro 2 now. After that, you have 2 audio interfaces in USB form on the back of the Rodecaster Pro 2. So the Rodecaster Pro 1 was 1 audio interface which also only had 1 I/O. So in the Rodecaster Pro 2, you have 2 interfaces, USB 1 and USB 2. Well, here's the little bonus. USB 1 has 2 I/Os and USB 2 has 1 I/O. So you have a total of 3 I/Os. So you have USB main, you have USB chat, and you have USB secondary. So on USB 1, interface 1, you have 2 I/Os you can choose. What people use those for is main might go to a DAW for recording, and then you might go to Zoom for a conversation on chat. Or more importantly, you might use your game audio from a game, and then you might use chat for Discord or something like that to compete.
Oh, that is interesting. I don't think anybody has anything like that.
Nope.
Wow.
With one interface, 2 I/Os, you can split those out, and Rode allows you to do that with their peripherals. And then if you plug in that second USB, now you have what's called USB secondary, and that's your third I/O. And you can actually plug both those USBs into the same computer and choose them as you'd like. Some difficulties, just to give you this real quick, is that software may not let you, right?
Gotcha.
So if your software doesn't allow you to sign ins and outs, then you're stuck with what that software allows you to do. But
Gotcha.
Rode will allow you to have those 3 I/Os if your software allows you to have those.
So wait a minute. I think I might have missed something in there, but it just popped in my head. I could actually connect to 2 different computers?
You can indeed. So USB 1 can go to computer 1, and USB 2 can go to computer 2. I just had a conversation with a guy from ESPN today about this, and that is that 2 could go to your distro. So the computer in which it's sending
The stream.
all of the stream to the world, right? Or to headquarters for then it to be further distributed. 1 and 2 could then be used, USB 1 with main and chat could then be used to bring other things in and out. And it's separate. It does its own thing. So in that ESPN conversation too, you're talking about maybe there's a broadcaster who just needs to go to their own recording, or you need a ClearCom system to send audio in and out from a computer to get distributed to local sound sources.
I think I have a question coming in for you. Hold on one second.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just a real quick question. One of the viewers online asked, is the USB compatible in the Rodecaster?
USB compatible to the Rodecaster to what?
Sadly, that's all I have. I'll get back to you if there's more.
Okay, sounds good.
I'm sure it's compatible if it's USB, right? Universal serial bus, right?
Yeah, if you're talking to a computer and things like that, on our website you can find compatibility with things like operating systems and phone.
Okay.
Different things like
Maybe that's what they meant, computer compatibility.
If they meant Rodecaster Pro 1 to Rodecaster Pro 2, that is not yet feasible. And plenty of people on forums talking about, hey, it's USB-C. I can plug anything USB-C into this, right? And as of right now, it's not that easy, right? You got to think like a computer is usually a full-on processor. So this is a good segue. The third thing, which also then leads into the fourth thing, is that we added a 4-core processor and 4 gigs of hard drive. And so I need to double check this real fast. Was it
4 gigs of internal storage?
It's 4 gigs of internal storage, and then you can even plug in an SD card and an external hard drive to actually record your podcasts and various things like that to an external hard drive. So
I may have to switch up.
Yeah. So I'm not even done yet, right? And you can see just how crazy this does get into power versatility versus the Rodecaster Pro 1. Now, for those of you out there that are still using the Rodecaster Pro 1, we like to make sure everybody's aware that nothing is replacing the 1, right? If you still have a 1, it is still incredibly powerful, completely does what it does. The reason then the 2 came out was for that processing power, so that we can add in that fourth and final thing, which is sound effects and processors, like more enhancements to reverb and delay and sound effects, monster effects, voice disguise. All that processing takes quite a bit of processing. And the Rodecaster Pro 1 just didn't have that power built into it because it was the first gen, right? So that's kind of hard to also see all of that, 5 years ago when it's being developed and so forth. But it was a major add-on to this. So now you can have the smart pads doing MIDI like it used to, doing sound bites like it used to. Now you can actually assign a reverb to it. So if you want to, in live performance, actually do that sound effect, I can actually have fun with this. I hope this doesn't mess up our sound, but if I
Voice disguise it. Now all of a sudden, I sound really creepy, you know?
and it's on a sound pad, so I can like straight up trigger it right there. I want reverb. Now this might be off. Yeah, it's off right now. But if I go into the effects, I'm actually on the Rodecaster Pro right now, Rodecaster Pro 2 right now. So I can actually edit it and turn reverb on to where now like I'm clean. And then this Sunday, it's going to be an exciting event. Now, with the one, you didn't have that capability because the processing wasn't as strong. And please forgive me. I'm trying to remember if it was 8-core, 4-core, but we put in actual processing to ramp this thing up immensely, and then gave you pad customizations where you can then manipulate it really, really well. So that's the 4 basics for why this is more than the original.
That's pretty impressive.
Thank
That
you.
that is pretty impressive. Still with the same effects as the Procaster One.
So the effects now, if we talk about processing, right? Compression, de-assing, noise gating, all of that, it's pretty much the exact same stuff, still Aphex powered. Now the master compressor is what's called a master compeller. It's more of a leveler in using the Aphex compeller of old and using that technology to really level out your final product versus just a straight up compressor on it or a limiter or anything like that. You have the master compeller now. But the other processes I'm talking about are more effects, not so much dynamics
yeah.
processing, but actual time-based processing and things like that. Echo, reverb, stuff like that.
The reason why I asked is because instead of having, your competitors' devices, there's this tone slider. When I, had some experience with the Rodecaster, it was like I was in a DAW, as far as compression setting, EQ settings. I could really get down to the nitty gritty. And that made me feel a lot better being an audio guy to really be able to dial in exactly what I needed rather than.
Right.
Yeah.
With this, you actually have that ability to actually go in and fully customize your compression settings. In other words, you can still fall back into the basic settings like the original, but now it's even more accurate. It even adds a few more parameters onto it and so forth. And like I said, I can even get into the reverb and decide how big the room, how long the decay, in the compressors, attack, release, and so forth. In the noise gate, you have so much more control than the original. Not that there was anything wrong with the original. I use that daily, and I just have a little more experience with noise gates than most. But one of the first things I tell people is noise gate can only work as well as your headroom. So if you have a really small headroom to your noise to your content, your signal to noise ratio, it's really hard to use a noise gate. But if you maximize your room quality, your placement of your microphone, distance from other noises, then a noise gate becomes a little more effective, even if it's not, a professional outboard noise gate. You know what I mean? So a lot of very cool upgrades in the 2, but the 1 is still 100% effective. We are not stopping any support of that unit or anything like that, but it is as Rode has said, it is at they don't plan to upgrade it anymore or otherwise, but no word yet of compatibility things or support going away. So if you have a Rodecaster Pro 1, keep rocking.
I see you guys got a new pair of headphones out too. I see you wearing them. Nice.
I do.
Those look very comfy. They look comfy.
They are very comfortable. I literally pull them out of my bag because when I travel, I have them on. They have Alcantara fabric, so that's high-end sports car fabric.
Ooh.
It's got cooling gel inside of it. It's got these patented locking mechanisms. So this is fit to my head, right? And then I lock them in, and then I just never have to adjust them again. They go right back where I had them, right in their comfortable position. They were shot with infrared, I think, UV infrared, where they looked for heat signatures to where if there was a pressure point, they minimize that as much as humanly possible against many, many different types of headphones. And that all went into the shape of them, the size of them. Obviously, they wanted them for content creators, so they made them a little smaller, a little sleeker, so that you didn't feel like you just had these giant earmuffs on. So very comfortable, very functional. But now we got to talk about the professional side of it, which is one of the flattest set of headphones in the market. the price point on this is $149. So
Gosh.
it is the flattest in that space, but you don't even get that flat until you start talking about open back headphones or otherwise. They're meant to be a replacement for many flat headphones out there. Now, I'm not bashing anyone or otherwise, because no headphones that are closed back can be perfectly flat. Any professional knows that, and that's because that's a chamber on my head, right? So that sound is going to bounce around in there no matter the headphone or the company or otherwise. Plenty of great headphones out there. I still use many of them. But with the new Rode headphones, what we wanted to do was smooth them out, create as flat of a frequency response as we could, and also that headroom, headroom's probably not the right word, but the amplitude difference between like our peaks and our valleys is shrunk down significantly versus a lot of our competitors. So you might get like a range of, say down in the low end, under 250, you might get a range between that and the mid frequencies of about 12 dB. Ours is like six or eight.
Oh,
So
okay.
really flattening that out. Not only that, one of the big detrimental things about audio frequency response inside of headphones is because they're chambers, you usually get some aggressive bump around the lows, like 200, 250, 100. The manufacturer can kind of customize whatever that bump is. And then the mids, the high mids, really, 4, 5, 6K, those are going to be like these little mountains, just pew, pew, because we hear really well in there. Those frequencies are perfect for hitting the back of that chamber and then coming back to your ear and amplifying. And there's just nothing you can do about it but smooth it out, control it, and then even it up against the other frequencies, which then gives you more of a flat response. It's really nerdy stuff. It's very cool in my book, but I'm a nerd.
It's very cool. I don't know if you're watching my facial expressions as you explain this, but I can totally understand the nerdiness of it. I'm like, oh, yes.
Yeah.
That's just proof. That's proof that I've gone through a lot of headphones to find me a good pair. And your description alone, I think I'm going to buy another pair
Try
soon.
them out, my friend. And I always tell everybody to try them against your next favorite headphone and really get an idea of what it's doing. Now, we are flat, so they're going to be warmer sounding. When you don't bump and amplify the top end and give you that smiley face curve that honestly our ears know and love, it's going to sound warmer because those low frequencies have more energy and they're not being overpowered by some more EQing and things like that. But you're also not going to get like that really tight punch of a kick drum at 80 hertz because that's smoothed out, that's evened out. Now, why do I want a flat response? Well, if I'm editing, first and foremost, or mixing also falls into that, right? When I say editing, I more mean like I want to hear what I got. I don't want to change something that I don't hear. So we want flat frequency response so that what we change is true to the sound, and you don't take it out to your car, put it on a TV later, and find out that the kick drum's gone or that it's like really
Too much
really
kick
loud.
drum. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not compensating for anything. So it's really, really good for that. But now I love to learn a flat frequency response. I think you would agree with that because it does train me a little bit more to get used to what a flat frequency response sounds like so that I like it more. If you're used to a smiley face curve, flat frequency response might not sound the best to you right now, but as far as a professional user, it's what you have to have or you're going to be referencing incorrectly. So that's what we look for.
Yep.
Comfort and professional application.
Absolutely. Do we have any other questions? All right. All right. Well, Ryan, look, I could talk to you about this all day.
And we will.
Yes, and we will. Hopefully we do this again.
Soon.
Yes, very soon. Hopefully we do this again. But we're going to go ahead and wrap up there. I just want to go ahead and thank the AVT class for putting this production together and remind our audience that this is a weekly event, this audio production town hall, and we thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you, Ryan, as well.
Thank you, Kendall. I appreciate you. And Full Sail, we'll see you on the next one.
Yes.